Hey Internet, I'm Chris, and this is a place on the internet where I talk about comics, movies, and games, and things I'm generally passionate about. So, what are we talking about today? Well, I've been talking a lot about DC, and it's something I'm really passionate about. I've talked about this before. I have a podcast, the Bada Boom Podcast, a shameless plug, which I talk a lot about DC and their comics. And what we've talked about a lot on the channel is absolute DC. I've shared my excitement, my concerns, and specifically in sort of my last few videos, my last video actually on DC, I talked about how potentially absolute DC could be DC's Heroes Reborn in a bad way. And I don't think when you bring up Heroes Reborn, there's really a good way to bring it up. But sort of my concerns were comments that were made in San Diego Comic Con about the takes on certain characters like Superman with Jason Aaron and Rafael Sandoval taking that on. A sexy Superman. I'm not really into it, but I'll probably be reading it. And what's making me make this video now is Scott Snyder has been on Twitter, or X, or whatever they're calling it these days. And he did a Q&A. I don't know if maybe it's a Q&A or he was just, sharing his excitement with his fans, his readers, his followers. And while doing this, I'm going to be honest, I'm really excited. So he shared some more art, and there's been more details around Absolute Batman, and he's teased some things as we get closer. I think we're about 69 days away from the release, from when I'm recording this, of Absolute Batman. Him, Nick Dragotta, you have Frank Martin Jr. on colors, and I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty excited from what I've seen and what's been described. So, I kind of talked about how concerning it was. Well, Batman has no money, which is kind of like really important to the whole thing of Batman. Hey, like rich guy beating up criminals at night, that's pretty awesome. So when you kind of have a big, broad, poor guy or middle class guy, working class guy, and you bring in Alfred, who sort of looks like this MI6 agent, a mix between, Deathstroke in some of the preview art. And, out of context, that looks a little weird. And again, why would Alfred be a part of this story if Batman's not rich? But I think on the internet, it is okay to change your opinion, and we need to normalize that, especially when you get new information. Seeing some of the things, like one thing that got me super excited, Batman uses his ears as batarangs. Like, what? That's awesome. And then you throw in the fact that his cape kind of has like this. In the book, he's an engineer, as Scott Snyder has said, and he almost uses it as like stilts. It's a cape. He could hook people. Just some of the art by Nick Dragotta, you just see the way he's able to inflict pain on criminals, which I haven't really been able to see in the comics the same way that I was able to experience in the Batman Arkham games, which is really satisfying. And as we've seen with Rocksteady's last game, we're probably not going to get that feeling again for quite a while. God, he created the Court of Owls, and probably the best modern Batman story that I can really think of off the top of my head. And, again, this channel, we've talked about sort of absolute DC and, sort of the inception of it and what Scott's trying to do with the other creators on board. In absolute Batman, as Batman is in regular DC comics, is going to be the anchor of this new universe. And even though it is a universe, Scott has talked about the fact that the Trinity, which is sort of what's been highlighted of Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman, are not really going to cross over for a bit, which is great because that means that they're going to spend a lot of time in the first couple months or the year building these stories, which I think is really important before they cross over. Case of Batman, where it seems like it's a radically new take. There are some things that will be familiar, but as Scott had said, there are going to be new characters, new villains, hopefully new friends, new frenemies, new stories. Gotham itself, I think, is a really great character, and he's talked about how Gotham in this story is going to be a lot closer to New York City than, Gotham in the comic books. And I think what Scott really did well with Court of Owls was make Gotham a living and breathing thing that Batman really interacted with. So it'll be interesting to see a character, a version of Batman that is a lot closer to the street because he is an engineer. He creates things, but he's also like 6'5", he's Reacher as Batman. Scott also shared was the fact that, and I think from a story perspective, like, it may seem like when you see those photos, those initial leaks, and I talked about it, it's like, oh, like hulking Batman, like what is really interesting about that or compelling about that? But Scott really made a good story point is, hey, the fact that he's not a billionaire anymore, well, at least in this story, and never was rich. At no point did he have to have the Bruce Wayne disguise of being able to navigate boardrooms and galas and all of that stuff. So he can just basically be Batman. The main Batman title in the DC universe has always had really strong writers. A lot of that has been boggled down by continuity and also the fact that if it's the main Batman book, it has to do a certain type of thing. So I think people have been sort of lukewarm on the previous two, which is James Tynion and also Chip Zdarsky's runs. And those are two really great writers with radically different storytelling styles. So the fact that sort of the responses, and you kind of saw that with Tynion introduced a lot of new characters. There is some aspects where you're like, wait, like, it seems like everything Tynan's putting out, from Something is Killing the Children to Department of Truth, all these things are so good, Nice House by the Lake, but the Batman just seems like very stale. And I think, they've even talked about, the limitations and stuff like that when it comes to editorial, when you're working on a big Batman book. And you've kind of seen that with Zdarsky. I think Zdarsky has been able to make a really action-packed story from the very beginning with Failsafe, and that's culminated in Absolute Power where we're at. But, they can't really do anything too radical with the main Batman book because that is what pays the bills at DC. And with Scott and the Absolute Universe and this new Absolute Batman book, hopefully they'll be able to do crazy new things that get people like myself who, kind of fell off the main Batman book. I read it through DC Universe, but I stopped pulling it, like actually like paying for it, because I was like, I could wait 30 days to read this. There's nothing like too exciting happening in the book that's going to make me, $5 a month when I could just wait 30 days to read it. And with Absolute Batman and what Scott has been sharing over the past few days, I think this is a book I'm probably going to be pulling every week and be excited about. So if you're looking at this video and you're like, Chris, weren't you complaining the other day? Well, again, to my previous point, if you get new information, you should be able to change your mind on things. And sadly, the internet doesn't allow you to do that these days. But we're bucking the trend. What do you think? I'm excited now for particularly that book, and also Absolute Wonder Woman, just because I like the design. Superman, still pull all these books. Hopefully, and let me know if you guys want me to review them or talk about them. I'm probably going to talk about them regardless. Like, the books haven't come out, and I've made like 5 videos on the topic. Let me know. Peace.